40 years ago, the Indian Army launched Operation Meghdoot. Indian Army soldiers occupied the Saltoro Ridge near the Siachen Glacier. That was on the 13th of April, 1984. Now, this was the first operation of its kind in the world. It was fought on the Siachen Glacier. It's the highest altitude battleground in the world. It's been the site of frequent clashes between India and Pakistan. However, more soldiers have died in Siachen from harsh weather conditions than from enemy firing due to frostbite, avalanches and other complications. Guarding Siachen Glacier is key to preserving India's territorial integrity, but it comes with a lot of challenges. What is the cost of patrolling Siachen? Why is it so important? What does it take India to maintain this point? It's an absolute honor for me today to welcome to the studio General Sanjay Kulkarni. He was a captain during Operation Meghdoot. General Kulkarni, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm also joined by Nitin Gokhale, author and one of South Asia's leading strategic analysts. Mr. Gokhale, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Hi, Sandeep. Thank you for this opportunity. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, and last and not the least, Anthony Rosario, who's just back from Siachen. He's the producer of a documentary on Siachen, which talks about India's two-front challenge there, among other things. This was a documentary he put together with Aditya Raj Kaul on Siachen, and he spent a day there. He spent a lot of time in the northern frontier, but we're going to talk about why Siachen matters today. But before we start, General Kulkarni, I want to start by reading out your Kirti Chakra citation. Always gives me goosebumps. I want to start by reading this. It says, Captain Sanjay Kulkarni of the Kumaon Regiment was detailed to lead a task force in a forward location in J&K. Despite the very high altitude, extreme cold, heavy snow, high velocity winds and blizzard conditions, he accomplished his mission successfully. I like how the army makes the most superhuman of tasks so anodyne that this is just another mission, another day at work for Captain Sanjay Kulkarni, now of course General Kulkarni. But tell us, sir, what it was like 40 years ago, this time in one of the toughest, not one of the toughest battleground in the world.
Sandeep, at the very outset, I must tell you that everything was shrouded in mystery.
Yes.
And that is why you can't really make out from the citation for Shaurya
It doesn't say where and what.
Absolutely. And for many years, we never
Yes.
spoke about it. And very few
Yes.
actually we interacted with.
Right.
And one of them was Nitin Gokhale,
Yes.
with whom we interacted, and he wrote his book Beyond
Yes.
NGA 9842.
Right.
But at that point of time, to be honest, Sandeep, I didn't know, or we didn't know,
Right.
that it is going to be the highest battlefield, that
Yes.
it's going to be a tough thing or
Right.
something like that. We took it as, well, it's a task
Yes.
which we must do, and that was it. And most of us, and I had seen the glacier in 1982.
Yes.
There was a reconnaissance, so I used to keep going there. 83, I was part of Polar Bear 1. Then in 84, of course.
Polar Bear was a recce mission.
Polar Bear was what they call it as LRP, long range patrolling.
Right.
And that is the one that actually triggered everything, because the Pakistanis subsequently
Yes.
did decide to follow after
Right.
we had de-inducted from the glacier. And it is then that things became a little more serious, because once the Pakis came on top, they found it extremely difficult to sustain themselves.
Right. Right.
And to the beginning of this initial Musharraf,
Yes.
who writes so in his
Right.
book, In the Line of Fire, that he, as a colonel,
Yes.
he was a part of the MO of
Right.
the military operations branch.
Right.
And he knew what was going on, how their co-commander, General Dahat Khan, was keen that, the operations, because of the way the troops had reacted in
Right.
83,
Right.
it couldn't be launched early 84.
Yes. Right.
And so was the Pir Daat Khan, their northern commander, who said, no, our troops will die.
Right.
And from March, they shifted the date to May,
Right.
the 1st of May.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure maybe the highest level, they were aware of it, but we decided to choose
We
13th.
preempted them.
Yeah,
Yes.
we totally. And this word that you used, Sandeep,
Yes.
preempted them.
Right.
This is the word that Musharraf also uses in his book.
Yes.
That India preempted,
Right.
indicating that
Yeah.
had we not gone
Right.
and occupied the Saltoro Ridge, they were all set to come and occupy.
Right.
So that's
Absolutely.
something we really need to be worried about, and we noticed it.
Yes.
As soon as you occupied, within no time they were all there.
Yes.
So that's indicative that they were already somewhere close by.
Right.
And that is something that this preempting them and
Right.
occupying the Saltoro ridgeline
Right.
and getting adequate information of it in how the earlier expeditions sponsored by Pakistan
Yes,
through
the mountaineering
Bella Fondla,
expeditions.
how would they be coming in?
Yes.
So all that was aware. How Vikram Sood was part of RAW,
Yes.
informed the corps commander General Hoon that this is
Yes.
what was going on.
Right.
The army headquarters, then Colonel Kumar, Bul Kumar was aware of what is going on. So
Right.
there was a lot of information. We also had done a lot of reconnaissance
Yes.
plus long range patrol. So it was not, and I would say that if I am sitting here, it's all the troops have done it.
Yes.
You know, I should not at all take credit. That is why even though the citation may read like that,
Right.
it's just that somebody had to be made to be given something, and I happened to be there. It's nothing. the
Typical,
troops
spoken
did it.
with the typical humility of an Indian Army officer, General Kulkarni. It's,
Sandeep,
I
let
mean,
me be honest, our men are fantastic.
Yes.
Unparalleled. So
Right.
super. What courage. What.
And to be deployed for 4 decades at this altitude, 20,000 feet. I mean, it's like literally fighting on the surface of the moon. That's what some Western commentators have said, that, this is a mission impossible from the get-go. But Nitin, you're the author of possibly the most definitive book on the Siachen operation, beyond NJ 9842. Why is Siachen important 4 decades on? Why is it even more important today? And that's in fact the topic of our discussion today. Why does it still matter so much?
Well, I think it mattered then, it matters now, Sandeep, because it is a wedge between the Chinese on the east of the Siachen Glacier,
Right.
if you look at the map, and the Pakistanis on the west of the Siachen Glacier or west of the Saltoro Ridge. Because you have the Siachen presence, or the Indian Army has the Siachen presence, actually it prevents a handshake
Yes.
between the Chinese and the Pakistanis over the heads of Indians in Ladakh,
Right.
and prevents them from colluding against India
Yes.
in that sector or in that harsh terrain. I think Siachen's importance has increased manifold since Operation Meghdoot in 1984. And therefore, India's presence at that height, in those altitudes, even in these harsh weather conditions, is extremely important even today.
Yeah, India's presence is very important there. And Anthony, you just returned from Siachen. Tell us how, you're a hiker yourself. You've climbed a few mountains, though not the major ones, but you're not an ordinary civilian. That's what I meant to say. How adverse was the terrain when you went there, and the shooting conditions over there when you put this documentary together with Aditya for us? Just give us an idea of the lay of the land.
I think it is said that once you arrive in Ladakh, because you mostly take a flight,
Yes.
you need a day or two to acclimatize in Leh. But I think I would modify that advisory and say I think you need a couple of hours at Siachen, because the moment we landed at Siachen,
Yes.
my brain stopped working for the last, as far as I remember, 15 minutes. I couldn't
Yes.
operate. I had to operate. I had to shoot segments, and I was
Yes.
like, oh, what's happening? I'm not able to make any sense of it. But
Right.
nevertheless, I think we caught on. My crew caught on, and we started. Of course, it's very cold, Sandeep. It's
Yes.
not just cold.
Right.
It's not just the cold that hits you. It's also the oxygen, right?
Yeah,
By
yeah.
some accounts, 10% of what we breathe in the planes.
Right.
So imagine the cold, the height, and then the oxygen.
Yes.
So for us, we were just there for 1 day and maybe a little more than 1 day. But for
Right.
troops who are posted there, some of them for more than 3 months, almost 4 months,
Yes.
it's very difficult. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to sustain. And we were only at the base camp, Sandeep.
Absolutely.
And there are posts as high as 21,000 and above.
Yes.
So one only wonders what it's like. Of course, we've not been into a forward post, but it must be even more difficult. Of course, the terrain is very rough.
Yes.
If you are to, you can't stay outdoors for a very, very, very long period of time. You constantly have to come indoors. And then, of course, water, the amount of water you have to drink there. And imagine if you're drinking that amount of water, you have to go on so many bio breaks. So it's a combination of several factors challenging. It's not meant for human habitation. But yet the Indian
Yes.
Army, 40 years on,
Yeah.
thanks to you, sir, and your men.
Absolutely. The Indian Army going where no man has gone before, General Kulkarni. But when you led that fantastic, heroic Operation Meghdoot 40 years ago, you were looking at just one front, Pakistan and the line of control. And 4 years ago, China has kind of mobilized in Ladakh, and now today the Indian Army is facing 2 hostile nuclear-armed adversaries. How have things changed? How does our presence on Siachen matter even more now, as Nitin was saying?
Sandeep, to what Anthony just said, I would say, there's a saying in Ladakhi,
Yes.
don't be a Gama in the
Right.
land of Lama.
Right.
It's very essential
Yes.
that you must acclimatize.
Yeah, the reference is to
Because-
Gama Pehlwan.
Yeah, it's very, very important because everybody thinks that, well, to begin with,
Yes.
it might sound very good,
Right.
but it's not so easy.
Yes.
Easy because not at all easy. You can't breathe properly.
Yes.
You can't sleep. You can't eat. You have severe headache. Like he
Yes.
said, for about 15 minutes, he was totally blanked.
Right.
He didn't know what was happening. So there are a lot of things. You get frostbite, chill planes, high altitude,
Yes.
a lot of people losing their limbs. So
Right.
it's very, very difficult to survive. And on top of it, minus 50 degrees, minus
Yes.
70 degrees, blizzardous weather.
Right.
So all of it is there.
Yeah. Nothing has changed. The weather hasn't changed.
Yeah,
in
nothing,
40 years.
absolutely nothing. Though I would say over a period of time, the glacier,
Yes.
for what it was 76 kilometer long then, may have
Right.
shrunk a little from the snout. I
Yes.
think there a little bit of that has taken place.
Right.
But over the years,
Yes.
seeing how China is now expansion,
Right.
that's where it is very important that you see. So Siachen is just not a watchtower.
Right.
It is also a water tower, because
Yes.
you find that the Chinese want to weaponize water.
Right.
If it is, that is what the Chinese are looking at. You saw what's happened in Galwan.
Yes.
It's an excellent training ground.
Right.
It is because the men take pride in
Yes.
serving on the glacier.
Right.
That's very important. That you feel, yes, I have served on the glacier. I can now withstand the worst of conditions. And that is where you found that at Galwan and
Yes.
Eastern Ladakh, when China did what it did, they were given a befitting reply.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's not easy operating at 20,000, 21,000.
Right.
You don't know what the Chinese are going to be doing at what time.
Yes.
So to be ready at all time, 24/7, 365 days, to be vigilant, you require to be capable to
Right.
operate at those great heights. And Siachen is an excellent training ground.
Right.
And we have prevented Pakistan bluff that they are on Siachen. They are miles away.
They're
They're
miles
not
away,
even
yes.
anywhere close to the Saltoro ridge
Right,
line.
right.
But you see over the years, like you were mentioning, the Pakistanis in 1963, when
Yes.
they gifted Shaksgam Valley
Yes.
to China, which was adjoining the Siachen Glacier. So like what Nitin said, it's like a wedge
Yes.
between Pakistan and China. And that is where it's very important that you continue to occupy, because you can't trust Pakistan.
Yes.
Whatever you might say, it's not possible. Even though for years before the CPEC, the Pakistanis and the Chinese had connived make the Karakoram highway, which
Yes.
came from Khunjara Pass,
Right.
which was just from the Shaksgam Valley and through Gilgit-Baltistan. So you
Right.
find that it's a very strategically important, even though we spend almost 5 crores a day. That's the kind of money that we spend. But
Absolutely.
it's worth it.
It's
Absolutely
worth it, and it's a strategic imperative. Nitin, I want to ask you about, some time back, about 15 years back, there was a move to get India to withdraw from Siachen, to demilitarize the glacier. The government of the day thought that it could, do this outreach to Pakistan. Can you tell us a bit about that, and why something like this would be very difficult in the scenario prevailing now, as General Kulkarni just mentioned?
Well, yes, that was the days of Aman Ki Asha.
Yes.
And at that point in time, decision makers in India and some peace snakes, or some people who thought the only way to do a rapprochement with Pakistan would be to pluck two low-hanging fruits, maybe the
Right.
Sir Creek dispute in Kutch,
Yes.
and the Siachen Glacier to be demilitarized.
Right.
Now, that itself, the very premise that Siachen Glacier, you have to withdraw, both sides have to withdraw and demilitarize itself was
Yes.
faulty, in
Right.
my view, and as General Sanjay Kulkarni will endorse, that the two sides are a party to it is what Pakistan says. But actually, Pakistan is not on the Siachen Glacier.
Right.
They are on the much
They're
lower
very far
ground
away, yes,
west
yeah.
of the Saltoro Ridge. They don't even they don't get a look in on
Right.
the Siachen Glacier, to the Siachen Glacier. So therefore, the very fact that India was deploying its forces on its own land shouldn't have really occurred. I mean, shouldn't have been a case where you say that
Yes.
you withdraw from here and I withdraw from there, and therefore we have a demilitarized zone. So I think that itself was faulty. That was
Right.
the thinking in the UPA 1 and UPA 2 governments. Thankfully, I think the army vetoed it.
Right.
And very sane voices like Pranab Mukherjee supported them at that point in time. And therefore, it didn't happen. But one small anecdote I wanted to add to what Sanjay Kulkarni said about living there on the Siachen Glacier,
Yes.
or what Anthony was saying. In fact, he had told me when I was writing the book that there is a saying in Siachen, "Pet mein roti, haath mein soti." Soti is a stick.
Yes.
Pet mein roti is, of course, you have food in the stomach, you're full. Then you take a lathi in hand and chal choti choti. When you walk there,
Yes,
take very
absolutely.
small steps,
Right.
so that you don't overexert yourself because lack of oxygen and the altitude. And I think the Indian soldier has perfected it, which actually helped the deployment in high altitude and super high altitudes of eastern Ladakh over the past 4 years in the standoff with China.
Chal choti choti. That's a good line there.
Absolutely.
Kulkarni, and it's
Why
like-
we say that?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, until and unless you synchronize your steps with your
Yes.
breathing, you're
Right.
likely to get tired.
Right.
So to prevent that, and that
Yes.
is what Nitin said, that was something like a mantra for us, you know.
Right.
Ki pet mein roti, haath mein soti, chal choti.
Choti.
That's the way,
Right.
and everybody.
But you know, General Kulkarni, just before the show, we were talking about China's water wars and their strategy to, possibly dam a lot of the waters flowing out of the Tibetan plateau. How does Siachen fit in that, this long game that the Chinese have embarked upon?
See, the Tibetan plateau, which is the, I would say, with the water reservoir, entire Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, everything. You find one of its tributary going to Indus, which is and going and joining the Arabian Sea at Karachi.
Right.
There you find that it is the Indus is
Yes.
there. And the other one, which is their river, which is unloading at the water at Xinjiang.
Yes.
Not Xinjiang, Shanghai. So you see from the top, and Chinese can't weaponize water.
Yes.
We've been hearing about it, what they do to Brahmaputra, they do all kinds of. And because obviously, if you have water, you can generate electricity.
Yes.
And that is where the dams are being constructed.
Right.
So much that the Chinese may say is run of the, it isn't so. Because you can release the water when you feel like, and thereby putting the lower riparian state into a tremendous amount of problem.
Right.
So the Chinese can't be trusted, and we have to ensure. You see the Galwan, what happened?
Yes.
The very fact that from Galwan comes the river Shyok,
Yes.
which joins the river Nubra, which is joining. And both the rivers then go and join Indus at Skardu and from Kapalu. Now, just imagine along the CPEC, which is being constructed now.
Yes.
So they are now joining Skardu to that. So another about 150 to 200 kilometers, they join from that same highway, CPEC, they join to Skardu.
Yes.
So you know the intentions of what the Pakis, and Pakis are virtually a stooge now, a satellite state of
the
China.
Chinese.
They will do what the Chinese tell them to do.
Right.
In that context, I think it is very essential that there is no question of anybody even recommending that we should vacate. And Benazir is known to be giving bangles to the chief of their army staff, saying that you better wear bangles because you people are not capable of fighting the Indian army. You are only fighting us, the citizens of Pakistan.
Right.
So there is a lot of undercurrent which is going on in Pakistan also.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't think, I go along with you and Nitin, that we can't trust Pakistan.
Yes.
Now all these talks are okay, and they should be left to at that. We have had 21 rounds of co-commander talks with China.
Yes.
You know what's happening. We've had 29 rounds of WMCC with China. You know what's happened. So it's useless. I don't think we should stick to where we are.
Right.
Because we have a tremendous, and anybody in the mountains have a dominating height. From 1984, 13th of April 1984 till date, how many attacks have been launched by Pakistanis?
Absolutely.
Not one succeeded, even Musharraf himself leading attacks. He's failed. So that be the thing.
Musharraf himself failed, and that was one of those elusive goals that he had, and he's written so in his autobiography as well, that his plans, repeated plans to try and grab Siachen failed. So you just heard from some of the best voices in India's strategic community why Siachen matters. General Sanjay Kulkarni, who personally led the assault on Siachen, Operation Meghdoot 40 years ago. My friend Nitin Gokhale, who's written one of the most authoritative books on Beyond NJ 984. To get a copy of that book if you want to read more about Siachen. And of course, my colleague Anthony Rosario, who's just come back and he's put together this excellent documentary on Siachen 2024, why it still matters. Download the News9 Plus app and watch our exclusive documentary on the Siachen Glacier and why it matters 40 years after the Indian Army captured it. Thanks for watching.
Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.